Our main character is lucky to live in a village near the border which hasn't been bombed. Fugo promised a lady to reap the rice, but he went to go play in the forest like usual. Fugo escaped smoothly, while Roka, his friend, came to play with him. Roka was swinging on trees while Fugo was trying to catch her. She said it was fine, but she lost her balance on a tree branch. This caused her to fall in the water, becoming drenched while Fugo wanted her out. They hide lots of secrets from adults, like where they're playing at, and a monster spawned in attacking Roka. Roka stuck her finger out and lightning made the beast dead. Roka had a secret power, and thanks to that they had dinner ready. Roka was eating her food happily and apologized for taking his shirt. Such a gentleman, giving his shirt up to not see her melons. Roka spotted something that caught her attention. Lycoris radiata was the name of the flower. Fugo's mom told him that this flower was unlucky and had barely any positives. Those were just names given by humans, and she said if people saw her powers, she was going to be called a witch. Would that be true? She asked him. He didn't believe that, and their secret won't be revealed. She wanted a secret between the two of them, and this was when they were to grow up. He would have to marry her. Fugo was the only one who understood her power, and she was to feel insecure if he didn't marry her. Later in the day, he sat on a wooden fence spotting Mr. Mao. Since he was a merchant, he asked him how the war was, and nothing significant was happening. He was just hunting prospects who could be heroes in the war like people he has found before. Soon asking if he has seen anyone with those powers. At that time, he thought of Roka's powers. An idiot like him was naive and gullible, and leaked the secrets to him. A month later, the knights from the capital arrived at his village. Roka was being forced to be taken away, and she resisted while Fugo tried to take her back and was held back from the knights. It was his fault Roka was taken away. Guilt started to form within him. Now he was alone in the forest with no one to call his name. He just thought if Roka were to be a hero, but she would have to kill people with the chance of her being killed. He was sobbing about how stupid he is, but also thought about what he could do. A small little boy like him had one idea, which was to save Roka. He picked up a sword, and no matter how long it takes him, he will save her. A few years later, the battle was still going and numerous warriors were fighting. Clanging sounds between the weapons were loud, and students were brought there to learn about the battles. A little donkey entered the training school because of his admiration, but now was scared. Fugo told him to go behind him because he will be the one to destroy all opposition. Lightning came from the skies, beaming the battlefield. It hit the front line, and it wasn't natural thunder. Instead, it was Thunder Emperor Roka. She appeared 10 years ago on the battlefield, and just because of her, his country had a fighting advantage. She really looks like a goddess of victory. Fugo finally appears, and the battlefield has consumed Roka. His goal was to save her at all costs, to atone for his mistakes. The knight leading wanted them to follow him, but he was stabbed. The enemy ambushed them, and confusion and horror was within the group. They tried to flee, but Fugo wasn't a little boy, and decided to fight back. With slashes, he pierced through the armor, killing them. He was hit by the enemy, but his guilt was his strength and managed to get another one. He will get to Roka as quickly as he can, without wasting any time. The first step has begun and ended. Another year passed and he graduated from the training school. Fugo was now part of the secrets team. The school heard about what he did when he was training, and the secrets team wasn't exactly the easiest job for a newbie. His expectations were high, and his mission was soon. Chilling on the rooftop eating sandwiches with his boy, they were talking about Fugo's admission. For the big guy, he was sent to the front line immediately, but the war was going to end, with Asram winning. The Lightning Emperor's skills were amazing, and her team was enough to make sure the kingdom wouldn't lose. The gap of strength was now 7-3, and rumors circulated of the opponent wanting a peaceful exchange. Fugo's first mission was going to be exclaimed. Fugo was unable to reveal the contents of his mission, and life or death was the only option for him. He was handed over the document, and the Lightning Emperor had something to do with it. His eyes started to be startled, and the word assassination appeared. The commander asked if he had met Roka before, and he had thus received this mission even though he was a newcomer. He thought the problem was the mission, and thanks to her strength, their kingdom will win. But peace may come, but because of her frightening powers, even during peacetime, her threatening aura was still there. All the other heroes were also sent assassins, and he was asked confirmation if he understood what he was doing. At his dorm, he smashed a chandelier and was pissed off. Miru got to see him annoyed because of some stinky mission. Miru told him it'll be fine if he failed, because someone else would be sent to do it for him. Then he realized it had to be him to complete it no matter what. He was finally able to go to the front lines and wanted Roka to wait for him, crossing on his horse through the midnight, having bodies surrounding him. He was fighting at the front lines to be able to stay by her side. He believed it was either resentment or she forgot about him. A place where he had the flower he saw in his childhood, and then he spotted something he's never seen. He knew it was a gun, and the lightning strikes were occurring rapidly. Roka was there knowing he was from the secret team. She knew he was there to kill him instead of seeing him, but that wasn't the case. Lightning was being formed from both of her hands, and this shocked every opponent around her. He dodged the lightning luckily, and then dashed. He saw how dangerous it was for her and called her name out because of a surprise attack. A bullet was going to hit her, but Fuko stopped it with an item. They were tag-teaming now to fight the kingdom, and their synergy was unmatched. 10 years is what Fugo spent to save Roka, and she was admiring his behavior. Well, this distracted her, causing her shoulder to blow up, and Fugo spotted the sniper within the bodies. He helped Roka before throwing a knife right at him. He was crying for not being able to protect her, and she knew this fate was going to happen. When the war was over, she would be useless after all strangers using the king's inventions came to kill her. The 4 people with divine powers mutually agreed on a way to deal with this. It was to escape to the enemy's whale kingdom, disguising themselves as the enemy to infiltrate because she learnt that their side's kingdom. They are bad guys, she said. He didn't know what she was talking about, and he was just trying to compete with her. She raised her hand to his cheek, telling him, "Because you are Fugo." Tears came from his face, and he grabbed her wrist with intention. He was going to join Roka to flee to the whale kingdom together. Lycoris radiata bloomed again amidst the battle of war. Other names were Flower of the Dead, but it means reunion. At a fortified castle, a henchman asked where the Majesty was. Breaking into the room, he wanted to ask His Majesty something. It was news about missing people, escapally the Thunder Emperor, and their hypothesis. They were no longer useful, the Majesty said, and told him his thoughts were all wrong. After all, it didn't matter, he told the military commander. "Try calling my name," he said. This confused him, and he said to call his name again. Well, he was Albert Einstein. Now I'm not sure, but I don't think Einstein created guns. With the weapons he made swords, and guns were those of the old era. In the other world he was a genius and a pacifist, but now with science he wanted to rule. Hunters were sent to hunt the 5 people who have holy skills and Fugo. They knew they were escaping to the whale kingdom, thus arresting them or killing them was allowed. Fugo's roommate was worried for him, after all he was part of those hunters. Meanwhile, Fugo was carrying Roka around, asking about her wound. Fugo made it so the bleeding stopped, which was great. Many things changed, and of course things would change because she has been on the battlefield for at least 10 years. She was able to keep her spirit because of her childhood memories with Fugo. Fugo too felt that way, because of his will to see her. He met her recently. He believed since he told the secret between themselves to a random person, their relationship was going to fall apart. If he kept hiding it, it either would be a secret forever, or she would be found out, and he is screwed. One day he will turn her to make amends. She thought it was like the old days, and she wanted to know what changed about her. Do not copy what Fugo said, which was wait. Her face pouted in an angry mood. He knew her anger was always the same. They reached the territory of the Whale Kingdom, and if they were to go any further, they would be meeting at the 1,000-year tree with those who use holy skills. One person known as the Life Emperor could heal the wounds, immediately being able to heal all but death. The tree is 50 times the height of our characters. He exclaimed how amazing it was for a single tree in a snow biome to be so tall, and then something caught his attention. It was the Flame Emperor Sando, She asked him a question about the amount of people here. The Flame Emperor wasn't in the best condition. Ultimately, his eye was missing and was dead. Warriors came out from the snow. It's an ambush from the Whale Kingdom, and their weapons were drawn. It definitely passed their allowance at the Whale Kingdom. The sum of enemies were huge, and since they hid their presence well, they weren't any ordinary goons. He dropped Roka from his grasp. Then he withdrew his sword knowing his death was imminent, but was going to protect her. Enemies were swarming them and they had their bow and arrows ready to fire. But before any conflict happened, an individual told both sides to lay their weapons aside. The Gokuto tribe didn't listen that the Whale Kingdom was going to accept the holy skill users, but their tribe didn't want them allowed in their territory for killing their brothers. They already argued about this, and they knew they would lose the war without them. The kingdom itself was made out of multi-ethnic groups having different regions with lots of diversity. Someone apologized for the killing of the Flame Emperor. Before anything else happened, everyone's eyes were directed upwards. No one knew what it was, but the guesses were a huge bird. Now it wasn't a bird, of course. Instead, it was a nuke. The shockwave created by the nuke started to create an impact that made some fall to the ground. Only remnants of the smoke remained, and in the Asram Kingdom, Albert was busy thinking of ways to make the nuke aim at the capital properly. The military commander thanked him for making weapons with the same power as those who use holy skills. Albert only had one desire, and since the throne was his, their win in the war soon to be. He didn't want the war to end. Instead, he won't let it end. No longer the old hymn, war became the norm of his life. The weapons might surpass the holy skill users, and someone wanted to reassure the Gokuto tribe if they understood. The Edo tribe wanted to unite all people, even enemies. The Gokuto tribe patriarch had something to say, assuming they could be spies. He thought how stupid it was for them to be spies. Jana knew that Fugo wasn't a holy skill user, and trust wasn't established between all. "I'm willing to sell out my country to join the enemy," Jana said, so she wanted to see his resolve. She brought over Fugo's old roommate, and a ceremony was to be conducted. Shouting each other's name, they believed killing formal allies were ways of being accepted. Miru was his best friend, and if Miru died, his reliability would go up. Roka was going to run away alone and leave Fugo, but he thought what she said was stupid. He won't leave Roka this time at least. She yelled to not kill his friend just because of her escape. He didn't listen and started ascending the hill to Jana. Miru snitched on his comrades and gave him information. He didn't want him to cry and wanted to find a way. Jana won't accept him unless he stabbed a vital point before giving him a sword. He tried to envision a way to fight back. He was going to stab Jana in the throat and take care of the guardians with Miru. But Roka was injured, and she would be killed due to the large sum of enemies. What should he do, and which side does he belong to? He couldn't choose him, how could he? But, "I'm sorry, Miru," he said. In Fugo's old country, someone was preparing a lengthy speech that no one wanted to hear about. Even Einstein could care less about it, because he was going to keep his aggression against the Whale Kingdom on the whole world. Back to the battlefield, he wanted forgiveness for doing what he just did. Eventually, Miru fainted down onto the floor. Jana noticed his liver was stabbed and wouldn't last for more than 5 minutes. Now he asked for confirmation to be allowed here, and they were allowed in but not welcomed. He wanted to be left alone in order to bury his friend. Orders were given to him about the directions he should take to reach their base. Roka barely got to him and asked who Miru was. It was his roommate, and Fugo said it didn't matter what he did, because up from the shadow of a tree laid an eye. Someone just like Roka. He believed it was the Life Emperor out of all the other emperors. He was amazed to be exposed immediately from him. Kuro was his name, and he remembered his aura from the battlefield before. Kuro was asked to heal Miru's wounds, and Roka agreed. Instead, he walked by them and went to Roka. Kuro was shocked and said he could heal this wound, but his eyes darkened. He didn't care about fresh graduates, and his life was gone. The reason was about to be shown as he touched Roka's shoulders. He sucked the life force from every tree around him. The 1,000-year tree started to fade away. Roka's wounds were finally healed, and he gathered the lives of surrounding trees to create a healing force. Just to heal Roka, cost almost all the trees, and a dying person wouldn't be saved. He asked if his life was a replacement, to use his life to heal Miru's wounds. Roka didn't believe this, and Kuro told him it'll consume him, and he didn't care at all. Roka thought it was no good at all. She banged her fists on his chest and told him it took him 10 years to see each other, and they ran away from their country. She wanted them to live together more just like the old times, being with each other's comfort. He assured her that he wouldn't die. In the first place, he had to stab his friend, and he had to pay for his sins. She had a horrid face, and the guilt of his past and now present was going to attack him at once. Kuro was ready to reduce a person around Roka, maybe because he was attracted. And it began. He put his hand on him, and his veins began to pop out. This feeling wasn't pain or suffering, instead the feeling of getting close to death. Time was starting to slow and things withered away. Where was he? He was hallucinating about himself. Roka was there but buried something under a tree. He was ashes and his memories were starting to fade away. He stopped dreaming about himself being dead, and he had a desire to protect Roka. Roka was scared and Fuugo was concentrating. Eventually letting go of him, and Fugo asked why he stopped. Well, he didn't use all his life force and Roka would be sad if he were to disappear. Anything for Roka, I guess. Miru's eyes awakened and looked at his wound before Kuro started to hug him. It was lucky Miru was still alive and was sorry for hurting him. Asram was planning to assassinate them, that's why he left and wanted help from Miru. His mission was to find the new king, Einstein. He was just an ordinary soldier. How could he do that? But the explosion from the new king was far from ordinary. He was probably at the beginning stages of attacking, but the war was supposed to be ending. Kuro laughed at using ordinary soldiers as pawns, even after holy skill users were to be killed. He realized what he must do, and thanked him for accepting while giving him contacts to locate him. He left, and didn't want him to go overboard. Miru asked if they'll see each other, and he promised they will definitely be seeing each other in the future. Kuro told him to tell the truth, because not only was his lifespan taken away, his left eye and left hand were rendered useless now. A bunch of guards were gossiping about the holy users escaping to their territory and how they must be treated. They wanted to kill them, and decided close combat was their way. The sound of soldiers marching were there, and a goon thought he could kill them with no experience and peered out the window. They brought a whole tank against people with axes. They never saw that thing and something was about to happen. The country fortress Lara of the Whale Kingdom is where they arrived. They were offering a free meal to them for a thank you. It wasn't poisonous, they reassured them, and he wasn't worried about that while Roka was eating quickly. Kuro asked if there were only 3 patriarchs, but there were 14 only, and only 3 were defending where they were at. He asked for the name of the person with a wolf helmet. She revealed her name was Yuki Kaiza of the Kuna tribe, and wow, she was pretty. A child, he thought that was compared to gain, and she inherited the title from her father because she died to Thunder Emperor Roka. Roka was sulking in silence and had something ready to say. She said that their side lost the Fire Emperor because of what they have done. Fugo was also hurt by an order of a patriarch, so when it comes to a feud, they too have beef. But Yuki had drawn her weapon and started dashing towards Roka. Their aura was really intense, and a fight was going to ensue. Her father always said if you are to be defeated, respect the other person. Strength is justice, and she respected her father's faith. She wanted to see her powers, and then she'll become a comrade. Roka decided to eat her meat in peace, and Fuko noticed her gluttony never changed. When they accepted them, they assumed they were going to be sent straight back to the front lines. But no. He broke down the situation saying they won't be attacked until spring. She asked why, and Fugo thought she would know since she was at the front lines before. It was due to the landscape and a dangerous mountain range as well as snow. Their goal was to rebuild their forces, especially getting the neighboring forces Gargiu for an attempt at an ally. But on the battlefield it was winter, and they were attacking with such a vehicle. They had to report back to the main city about this odd situation. Guns were shot at the soldiers and retreat was the priority for them. It was thought they would attack until spring, and new weapons were being used. They were all talking about plans, but let's say they might be a little bit useless. A goon barged into the room telling them Asram soldiers are close to the capital. "What?" he said in a shocked voice. A tank shot the building, and the wall instantly collapsed. Something they have never witnessed before. Well, everyone left their building and were ready to fight back. Hiding behind a wall, Fugo was asked what they were. Neither the axe or arrows could pierce, and 10 people unfortunately died. The contents of the mission were more mysterious than the underground organization, and he thought there was no way to deal with it. But Roku didn't want to be seen as exhibits for the Alliance dealings. She was dangerous against the Whale Kingdom, but not friendly with the Whale Kingdom. She struck lightning down right on top of the tank. The tank was unscathed. Yuki would take care of the infantry around and needed someone to take care of that iron block. She was called a little girl by Roka, and she inherited the title of patriarch because she was respected with lots of power. Her twin blades have tasted more blood than 100 Asram soldiers. She said if Roka couldn't make her respect her, then no more excuses left. She understood, and said even a crying child must stop when someone mentions her name. A boy with binoculars found those who ran away. Another lightning strike was targeted at the tank, but she was starting to gas out. She wasn't at full strength, and Fugo told her reckless attacks were useless. The thunder went through the surface of it, which soaked into the ground. So she should aim at the inside because there might be someone controlling it. Another shot was fired at the fortress, and to be destroyed in very simply is outstanding. Yuki dashed towards the enemy and with shots fired at her. With a swift and fatal sweep, she ended the lives of them both. She turned around and ended the life of another, and then asked the Lightning Emperor what was taking so long. The boy from earlier knew the tank was hard to deal with, and had no choice but to use a test item with bamboo. Fugo was fighting when someone was just firing shots at him. He had to slide and hide into cover. He had to think of ways to allow lightning to penetrate through the tank, but saw the boy from earlier. They claimed to be an enemy or ally, but currently is an ally for them. He had questions, but they weren't answered. Instead, he gave a way for lightning to penetrate the tank without giving a lengthy explanation. Its disadvantage is that it'll explode at close range, and he asked why they were helping them, or was it a trap? There was no trap, and he just wanted to help people who were about to be dead. Fugo called the names of his allies and asked them to pin them down. Kuro decided to take action, and vines started to do their job. It went to the 3, and the tree blocked the tank from moving. He stabbed the weapon onto the tank and let the rest onto Roka. Kuro assured her there was a hole, and then a lightning strike came from above while Fugo ran away. Yuki acknowledged she was a comrade for what she had done. Now he couldn't run away as he had to protect Roka. Einstein was busy looking at his sick weapon collection. Someone was commenting on his behavior. He felt insulted and asked where he went. The person just wanted to learn more about the situation of the world. Well, this boy wasn't any ordinary boy after all. He was Thomas Alva Edison. Other countries were reinforcing their strength using magic, but they were using science to win this war. Asram Kingdom really likes the Whale Kingdom's females to the point they touch them. Wine was good, and they were torturing men by doing things I should not be saying. Defeat had been decided, and they still fought, and they believed they wouldn't lose to them. A goon was reporting to an Asram commander about what happened, and I won't be saying anything because you know what happens. He was asking for Pizarro de Curio's opinion. He wanted to do not very nice things to the holy skill users. His goon thought it would boost the morale of the commanders, a great plan. They were a special squad formed by Gigaf and wanted to have some fun with his missions. This creep wanted to know what Roka would taste like. They couldn't wait, and would ambush when it was too dark. Fugo finally woke up and thought he was beaten because of how heavy it was to get up. Well, Roka was just resting on top of him, sleeping quietly. He called her name out loud enough for her to wake up. She was ecstatic and went straight up to his face. He was asleep for 3 days, and his fever went down. She has been his caregiver for the most of the time he was asleep, and he didn't know why she entered his blanket. It was because they used to do this together, and it was true. Outside the room, a guard was swiftly ended. The information said there were 3 patriarchs, 3 fugitives, and 2 holy skill users. Patriarchs were to be ignored, and 2 holy skill users weren't a problem. Fugo asked why Asram was on the bad side. She was scared to protect her country, and when she fought an order was given to massacre all without exception. An ethnic purge, and she couldn't disobey, because it was the main order. There's no difference from a demon to Einstein. Thomas told him the Whale Kingdom couldn't fight back anymore, and he asked if he was a demon. That's right, because of the weapons he has been using, and said it was the beginning. If Thomas helped Einstein earlier, things would have hastened up. Gargiu Empire were going to invade Asram, and he has been waiting for some war. Whale Kingdom was making him feel bored. It was ironic that the one who dedicates himself to life in another world has completely opposite thoughts here. Roka was busy talking to Fugo and was happy. Fugo was looking straight at the door and decided to push Roka away. He went quickly to grab his sword and withdrew it. He was searching the room for where an enemy was, until he looked up and saw a pervert. He was impolite and couldn't stand waiting for delicious food. He instantly came up to attack him, but he went to his blind spot. He noticed parts of his body weren't usable, and he realized his opponent wasn't an amateur. Before the sword cut our boy's head off, he dodged it, and Roka was debating whether she should use her lightning or not. Yuki was woken up by sounds. She knew intruders were there because of 248 people. The steps she heard were intentionally erased. She went out the door and decided to kill the first one, but they blocked her attack and punched her in the stomach. This sick bastard asked for her even though she was just a kid. The mission was a higher priority, and they were gossiping about her being too weak to be a patriarch. She was left on the floor thinking about who they were with such immense strength. Our boy was struggling to defend with one hand and a few more hits, and he would be cornered by him. He told Roka to fight back, and she couldn't hit Fugo. It was fine because he couldn't defeat him anyways, and she was very hesitant. The guy said it was over, and told Roka to listen. After all, it was his fault. Because he told the secret, Roka was sent to the battlefield. He is the cause of her hatred, and should attack.